Middle Park. In the middle of what? Does it have its own identity, or is it just midway between more important worlds? Between the horizon illuminated by city lights and the beach, between the lake and the bay, between cruising Port Melbourne and crazy St Kilda, can we find the heart of Middle Park?
Oh, I think the people.
Variety.
Oh, the location, yeah, the proximity to everything.
All the wide open spaces, the fact that you've got the park on one side and the beach on the other.
A very country feeling, a village type feel, and the people seem very friendly. They're sort of like, they know each other by name.
It's not the same boring. It's not all just one age group. It's different. Old, young, Italian, Greek.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know, this might become a bit of a big head, but a bit of a media light where you can go across the road to the local restaurant and you try to have a romantic dinner with the wife, and you might have to have 25 hellos while people are walking by, and by the end of the night people move their tables with yours.
It's just the quality of life. You're very close to the city. It's a lovely leafy green suburb.
I just love the cosmopolitan feel of it, that we're close to the city, close to the water. You don't have to go out of the suburb to get a beautiful meal or to, do a little bit of shopping if you like.
It's still quite a small village and everybody still knows each other. First name basis, I would be on first name basis with maybe 80-85% of my customers, which is really unique.
For me, I think it's just its location.
You walk home, the tram or the train doesn't go or whatever, just walk home. You want to get anywhere, you walk up to the market, or it's all here.
Just another thing what we used to do. We used to live here and we walked to Moomba. You walk to Fitzroy Street, you walk to the beach, walk to the park, walk to the lake. Everything's walk, and it's not only good for their reason, but it's good for your health. We walked everywhere.
It's close to the city, it's close to the beach. Albert Park's fantastic.
I think the proximity to everything in general, being the city where I work, MSAC being the Melbourne Sports and Aquatic Centre, the lake, the beach.
Well, look, there are many good things about living in Middle Park. I mean, not the least of which is coffee. But I suppose it's just the friendliness of the people. I live in Richardson Street. I live about 3 or 4 blocks away from Middle Park Shopping Centre. And each time I walk up there, particularly if it's a nice sunny day, I run into 2 or 3 people. I tell my wife, I say, look, I'm going to be 10 minutes. I'm just going up to the post office. Well, 2 hours later I return. Because you see, I've met Rom on the other side of the road. I've met John just a little bit up further from me, and patted about half a dozen dogs and spoken to many, many different people. I think it's just that friendliness that I like so much about the place.
Middle Park Station, built in 1881, has been the entry point to Middle Park for 6 generations. It was built on the historic 1857 railway to St Kilda, which was converted to the light rail tram line in 1987. The line ran between 2 wetlands, with Albert Park Lake on the east side and the Middle Park Swamp on the west. The station was honoured with the title Rifle Butts when Middle Park was a military range, with its targets located on today's primary school. The Middle Park Hotel was built opposite the station in 1889 and has dominated the Armstrong Street shopping centre for 120 years. It juts into the corner of Canterbury Road and Armstrong Street like the prow of an Art Deco ocean liner, but was originally built in the Italianate Victorian style. Next to the hotel on Canterbury Road is the former State Savings Bank of 1916, One can see the national pride of government in its magnificent classical facade. 3 doors south is the former Cobb & Co. livery stables of 1911, later converted to the motor garage known to locals as Waller's, from horse to horsepower. In the lane behind, its historic BP sign can still be found. Armstrong Street was created in 1888, running through the drained wetland. By 1910, a precinct of Victorian and Edwardian buildings had been created. The community's gathering place was number 1, Armstrong Street. It evolved from the Middle Park Hall in 1913 to the Middle Park Theatre in 1916, a cinema later operated by the King family in 1920, and the famous Arrow Theatre owned by Frank Thring in 1951. Has Armstrong Street Shopping Centre changed?
It has changed a lot since I've been here. When I first came, there seemed to be only elderly people down at the shops. But now we tend to have so many young people, young mothers with babies in prams or strollers. So in many ways it has changed a lot.
Why are you passionate about the group and collecting history?
Well, several of us felt that there was a lot of history in the area that would be lost if we didn't manage to get it written down. And so we decided to get together and see what we could do about this.
Post-war immigration by the Greek community created the Lemnian Community Centre. Today it houses shops, a gymnasium and a reception centre. Jack owns a gym called the Sweat Club, located in the former cinema and theatre.
What's it like taking over this beautiful building, and what are your hopes for it?
When the Middle Park Lifesaving Club shut down and sat vacant for a while, I tried to get the council to grant me permission to use that building, and my vision for that was to make it a life-saving centre once again and make it a community life-saving centre. So for want of a term, having a health club in this building in a community centre and making it a life-saving centre. We're promoting it as a local health and fitness centre so we can help people in the community stay healthy. That's our vision for this place.
One of the shops leased from the Lemnian community is Ari's Shoes.
When I first got here, I learned my trade from my uncle, and then when I moved in here, Mr. Brown, Sam Brown, who I think passed away last month, was around the corner. He was operating, and before him, he was telling me there was 7 shoe manufacturers, shoe repairers, a saddler, and a key cutter sort of type of business. In just because Middle Park used to be a train station, that light rail was a train line. And then when I moved in the area, Mr. Brown was still going, and after he saw what I was learnt and how I was doing my job, he endorsed people to come, because he was getting old. He was nearly 70 odd then, and ever since then I've never looked back. Sort of, it's more and more. If you love something, you do it properly. It shows. In our industry, there's a lot of what you call Mr. Minute people, those quick service where they just stick rubber soles on and heels. That anybody can do that virtually. We go a bit deeper. If there's tears in the leather, I mean, these guys don't know how to do it. You got to undo the shoe, put a very thin piece of leather to reinforce it. Heel build-ups. In winter, a lot of ladies have got either big calves or narrow calves. You got to be able to adjust the boot by tacking it in. That takes time. That's a big involved job. All this, as I said, there's years of experience, whereas there's Mr. Minute and Copper Plus and other sort of kiosk type setups. They're just there for quick service. This is the this one here. These 2 wheels of sandpaper. We roughen and prepare the soles and the shoes, because everything's got to be sort of scruffed up so the glue can take in. Brushes, when we finish the job, we give it a nice buff, the shoe, to give a nice finish with the wax. This one here, is made by me, handmade. It's a grinding wheel with an extension handle and a long sandpaper, which is I use for the finishing, because it's very fine sandpaper, so it gives a nice clean, smooth finish. And this one here, this old heavy duty thing, it's called a Fraser machine. The old shoe repairers would endorse this. All these fan belts make it turn very quickly, and by turning it and the knife up there, I get a beautiful finish on the sole. We pride ourselves in our job, and if you do it properly and do it once. And that's why I don't want people to come back angry and complain and throwing shoes at you and say that you haven't done this properly. Yeah. Again, you don't please everybody, but when you try your best, they acknowledge that.
Emily Love ran the grocery store at number 5 Armstrong Street from 1891 onwards. She was the only occupant of the entire block for that first decade and remained a grocer for a further 20 years. Walking Armstrong Street is like browsing the aisles of a great library. The streets are the shelves holding books of brick and stone, and every volume is an encyclopedia of people, place and memory. Shopping was comfortable back then. Magnificent cast iron verandas protected you from sun and storm all year round, and the glowing gas lamps lit your way at night. The history of buildings is a story often told in their facades, like at number 7, where a pharmacy opened in 1911. By 2010, the Blitzes family owned this business and 3 neighbouring shops. Their garden in the rear lane celebrates their Mediterranean origins.
My name is Victor Blitzes. I own Victor's Dry Cleaners in 9 Armstrong Street, Middle Park. I've been here since '91. Grew up in the area, well, since 3 days old. My parents owned the 4 shops in Middle Park. We owned the Dry Cleaners, the fish shop next door, the post office and the clothes shop. They came over, I think, in the mid-60s. On a ship. Back then it was ships that would come over here. Can't remember how long it took to come from Greece to Australia. A couple of weeks, I believe. And I think Dad started off in the craft cheese business, started working in there for a couple of years before he moved into the fish shop in '67, where he was renting it for a few years, and then later on he bought it, probably early to mid 70s. He followed up by buying this shop here, which at the time was a fruit shop, and once I moved in there we converted it into a dry cleaners. Lane behind the shop, it's almost like a hidden treasure back there, Maya. Well, that's the entry to going upstairs. There's with all the 4 shops, to get to upstairs you got to go through the laneway, and Mum sort of took it upon herself to make it into like the botanical gardens, I'd say. She's done it on her own accord and been a green thumb, she's made it into something a little bit unique, I think. As Greeks do, they never retire, they just work less and less but annoy the children while they're at it too. So.
Numbers 9, 11, 13 and 15 were first listed in 1912 to 13 and occupied by a bootmaker, a tailor, a dressmaker and an ironmonger.
The feel that I got when I came to have a look at this business was like a very country feeling, a village type feel, and the people seem very friendly, and they're sort of like, they know each other by name, which is unusual. I've worked in places where people will say hi, g'day and no names. Here I've learned to know many of the people's names and then greet them by their first name, and I think they appreciate that, and they become very friendly because of that. Obviously the shopscape, the streetscape that's around here, and the shopkeepers that I visit every day, they're very nice. They've been here a while. Most of them have been here a while. and you know, I just really love it, and it was one of the best moves I've made in my career.
The 4 houses at 17, 19, 21 and 23 were replaced with 4 identical single-fronted shops in the 1920s. Crofts, today IGA, supplied people with groceries for generations through grim depression and boom times, fire, flooding and war. In the 1940s, its windows were browned out and anti-aircraft gun emplacements were dug near the Middle Park Bowling Club. From here, looking west up Armstrong Street, could be seen the familiar site of the popular Middle Park Baths until they were demolished in 1961. From 1907, thousands of onlookers would crowd Armstrong Street annually to celebrate the Old Buffers Carnival by dressing in crazy outfits with horses and vehicles and raising large sums of money for charity for over 70 years. Until 2010, the family of Lorraine Tribe were the oldest residents of Wright Street, Middle Park.
My grandfather moved here from Essendon when my dad was 14. And he went to Middle Park School up there. Yeah. And he's dead now. He would be 83 or 84 now.
Yep.
If he was still alive. So that make it about 70 years we've been in this house. Like my mum's, we've moved away, my brother and I. But my mum's still here. But they actually only owned the house for about, 31, 32 years. Grandpa rented the house, I think it was guineas in them days. I think it was 3 guineas. That's £3, 3 shillings, I think. I think the houses look a lot better now though than what they did. You'll see these photos. All the houses looked exactly the same over there. And now they all got their little bit of individuality. But in them days, all that same wire fence, and they look pretty drab really, like black and white photos, but you know, they look pretty drab.
Yeah, they weren't as kept as well as they are now.
No trees, there was no trees in there. I remember the Iceman coming when I was very young. The Iceman would pull up out here and he'd have his, I think it must have been pulled by a horse, I can't remember that bit, but I remember the ice chest thing on the back. I'd open it and the guy would put a bag on his shoulder and the big old ice clamp thing, block of ice on his shoulder. He'd walk down the passage, hang on the pile of ice into the kitchen. And Grandpa would open the ice chest, throw the big block of ice in there, and that's what kept your food cool. There was a top place to grow up, like you got the beach down
Fantastic.
there. Beach down there for summer. And you got over here the park in winter. We used to sail boats over here, row the boats, you know, the hire boats and all that. In the Sea Scouts. It's a top spot. There's no worries. Heaps of, you know, transport into the city.
You couldn't get a better place to grow up. The time we were growing up, we had the best era, or whatever you like to call it, we reckon.
Oh, well, you could go in the shop here and you could buy crackers and you'd get out the front and away you'd go. You start lighting them and throwing them all around the place, you know. You could do that. Yeah. You'd have another group over the other side of the road, you'd maybe throw a few over there and then they'd throw a few back, you know. Yeah. But everyone survived. We all survived.
These were threepenny bungers, we might add too. They were just short of a stick of dynamite. I'll give you an example. Feel that breeze coming from the beach? Well, one day I got the great idea of tying 3 threepenny bungers together, which was pretty lethal, and putting them under one of Dad's stainless steel buckets. It was like a shuttle. But the only thing I didn't think about his car, and he was pretty good in his cars. His cars were always spotless. His car was there, and I put it, without thinking, a metre behind his car on the road, and had a few mates there, like, and lit the fuse light on. We got back, and then it's gone boom, and it's gone up about, I don't know, 50 feet in the air, and that's when I realised, oh shit, the wind's coming from the beach, Dad's car's here. Jesus, because if it had a hit, well, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here today. The old man would have killed me. And it missed his car by about 2 inches. Oh mate, I looked up and I said, Jesus, there is a God.
Crossing Richardson Street, we turn left into Neville Street. Both sides of this street had large hat and millinery factories. Honeybone's Hat Factory, 1886, and Godfrey's Hat Block Company, 1923. The machinery finally fell silent in 1940. In 1911, 4 new shops at numbers 36 to 42 Armstrong Street were occupied by a draper, a pastry cook, a cycle works and a costumier. 2 churches were erected in Richardson Street in 1904 and 1912 for Baptist and Presbyterian congregations. Around 1936, a 2-storey block of flats and shops in streamlined modern style were built on the east side at the rear of 34 Armstrong Street. I live down the other end, 18. There's a beautiful street.
Yes, we've been in Wright Street for 4 years, and originally from New Zealand, and then been in Melbourne for 11 years, and always loved visiting the Middle Park area on weekends, and so decided to move.
I just think it's a great area. It was one of the reasons when we came back from America we thought about where we'd live when we moved down here, so we could be near the sea. And I just think the location with the beach and the park is excellent, both for our dog. We've got a very large dog despite living in a terrace house, and also for a baby.
My connection with Middle Park dates back since I was a baby. One of my great aunts used to live here on Richardson Street, and I used to come down with my dad, who when he moved to Melbourne he actually lived with her, and used to come down and used to hang out at the beach. Well, I've been living in Middle Park for the last 20 years. I moved here, well actually 21 years. I've always loved the suburbs since I've moved here, and we're very lucky to have a house large enough to have a family here in Middle Park. Genevieve is obviously born in Middle Park and has only lived here for the best part of 11 months.
Moved here before last Christmas. Yeah, so we really enjoyed it here. Well, the reason we moved here is because this area is so nice, close to the park, and the beach and houses are nicer.
Yeah, I love the beach. Walking along and stopping at the odd cafe and grabbing a coffee and continuing on my walk. It's just lovely, and then having a look in the shops down Armstrong Street. It's it's just a great suburb, and just close to everything.
I just love just the outdoors, the parks and the beach is so close. Living in between both of them is just fabulous. The beach is fabulous as well. Just the village atmosphere and just being able to walk down to Armstrong Street and have a coffee with friends. It's just very social, and being able to jump on the tram and hop into the city really quickly as well. So it's just really convenient, and the people are friendly, and it's a lovely environment to live in.
In 1906, the shops at 28, 30 and 32 were occupied by a real estate agent, a butcher and piano tuner. 5 new shops, numbers 20, 22, 24, 26 and 34 Armstrong Street, were built in 1905 and were soon occupied by a grocer, a newsagent, a draper, a watchmaker and a dairy produce merchant. Today, at number 20, is the Victorian Wine Cellar and the Middle Park Bar and Cafe.
From what I know about the original Victorian Wine Centre, the original licence was a Victorian wine licence, which meant they could only sell Victorian wine, hence the name, Victorian Wine Centre. And I think it might have been moved from somewhere local in the area, but as far as I know, the licence could have been here up to 30 years ago, quite a long time. But it was originally just a Victorian wine licence. So it's always been a bottle shop, and next door has been a cafe for at least 8-9 years. So that's as far back as I go.
Middle Park's bakery was built at number 18 in 1900 on the island between Erskine Street and Canterbury Place. Behind the Esmonds family shop was the 2-storey bakehouse. The horse-drawn carts delivered bread from the stables on Canterbury Place. On the corner of Armstrong Street and Canterbury Road is the Canterbury Buildings, where the earliest two shops were constructed in 1889. Its early occupants were estate agents, chemists and hairdressers. If we walk north to number 86 Canterbury Road, we find a place that expresses the essence of this precinct, the famous Sam Brown's shoe shop. This shop, with its beautiful nugget signage, was home to 3 generations of shoemakers for 90 years. Sam Brown started work in the shop with his father and grandfather in 1930. His grandfather, born in 1848, had arrived at Middle Park in 1898 and managed the shop until his death in 1936 at the age of 88. Sam took over his grandfather's shop until he retired 53 years later in 1989. Hard work, persistence and generosity characterised the Brown family and so many other working families that founded and built the Middle Park community. These people and others like them are the heart of Middle Park.